where these senior military people would say, well, wait a second now. That's what this is about, huh? The President Cheney trying to save their political skins. And that might be enough to swing the balance and say, look, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, we think this is suicide for our troops, and we would very much like you to put our names right under Admiral Fallon's on the top of the retirement list, and we're announcing that this afternoon. That's what it would take. And I don't know if they're up to that, but most people tell me, no, the order given, they'll discharge it.
Yeah, it seems like the Congress is willing to go along with whatever Bush says, as long as that's also what AIPAC wants.
Yeah, the amount of money and the massaging that's gone into this, I mean, AIPAC actually drafted those two resolutions in the Senate and House, which are equivalent to declarations of war, recommending, as they do, blockades. Even the language in those things is meretricious. It's a fancy way of saying deceitful. In one place, for example, one of these whereas clauses, whereas Iran could get a nuclear weapon in 2009, according to the National Intelligence Estimate of November 2007, comma, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, what did the National Intelligence Estimate of November 2007 say? It said, quote, Iran could conceivably get a nuclear weapon as early as late 2009, but we all consider that to be very unlikely.
Well, actually, it didn't even say that, Ray. It said they could be technically capable of producing highly enriched uranium enough to make a bomb by the end of 2009, but we deemed that very unlikely.
Right. You're right. And, of course, the operative thing here is that they forgot to include the clause that says we deem that extremely unlikely. So there's a lot of playing fast and furious with the truth here. The media in this country, as you know better than I, is what I call it the fawning corporate media. We won't get much help from them, so it's really up to folks like us to try to spread the word around and let Americans know that if we go to war with Iran, it's not because of any perceived U.S. interests. It's pure and simple a rather passionate attachment that our president and vice president have to the state of Israel and its overblown fears of what would happen if Iran's nuclear facilities are not destroyed to the extent they can be at present before Cheney and Bush leave.
Well, now, I've always been confused about this. What do Bush and Cheney care about the Jews in Israel? I mean, Bush is the grandson of a Nazi, basically. Dick Cheney is a redneck from Wyoming. I've seen no real indications that he's a holy roller who's trying to force Jesus to come back faster or any of this John Hagee stuff. What do you suppose is the motivation of those two? Elliot Abrams, okay, I guess that makes sense. But why Cheney and Bush?
Well, Bush is a very strange character, Scott. I don't need to tell you that, I suppose.
I've perceived something along those lines in his character before, yeah.
And he has this incredible identification with the Israeli leaders. Now, you can see this in many things. One of the most poignant, I think, was when Ehud Olmert saw fit to give him fulsome praise before the press on his ultimate visit out that way. And you can watch, you see the cameras on Bush, he's turning into putty, He's just saying, oh, really, these guys really like me. Here I am. They call him a saint over there in Israel, okay? Now, that's sort of anecdotal. What's important? What's important is what important people who know what's going on say. And I think I've mentioned this before, but Brett Scowcroft, the general who used to run the National Security Council for the first President Bush, saw fit to say in late 2004, when he, that is Scowcroft, was still chair of the President's Foreign Intelligence Advisory Board, Scowcroft, the quintessential bureaucrat who would never say anything to the press that he didn't fully intend to say, went to the Financial Times in London and said, and I quote, Israeli Prime Minister Ariel Sharon has our president mesmerized. He has him wrapped around his little finger, end quote. Now, Scowcroft lost his job the next Monday, was told never to darken the White House doorstep again. But the question is, why would he say something like that? Why in the world would Scowcroft, so close to the president's father, and so much in the train of things, so much in the flow of information as head of this very prestigious panel, why would he see fit to go to the press and warn about this? Well, I think he just wanted us to know that there's something a little screwy about our president, that he has this identification with people, swashbuckling people like Ariel Sharon and Omar, and it's a very dangerous situation, and God knows what he has promised them. But as I speculate in my piece, the way the hostilities are likely to start would be with a wink and a nod from Cheney and Abrams. The Israelis would do something that would cause them to be attacked by Iran one way or another. And then, as Cheney and Bush have both promised, publicly, mind you, the U.S. would be in with both feet and certainly would initiate Plan A, that Mike Mullen and the rest of the Joint Chiefs are deathly afraid they're going to be given the order to do.
Do you think they would even bother manufacturing a pretext? I mean, why not just start the war? They've been saying they're going to for years now.
Well, that's not the way you do things. It's a little embarrassing to be sending U.S. troops into a situation like that, having them shot down or having them cut off from their main supply lines in Iraq. You have to have some sort of manufactured pretext for this. And
well, they have the nuclear program. I'm just saying, here's what I'm saying. If they had done the running start for the Iraq war and gotten a UN plane shot down or whatever, I think most of us would have saw right through it. And certainly with all this hype leading up to this attack, if all of a sudden there's some, terrorist attack in Israel and they try to blame it on Iran or something, wouldn't everybody just be suspicious? It would seem kind of unnecessary and too risky.
Well, Scott, I think the answer to that is you would be suspicious. I would be suspicious. But, not too many people listen to what you and I say. They turn on Fox News, and that's what they're counting on. I mean, as I say in most of my speeches, Scott, the sea change, the most important sea change that I've seen in this country in the 45 years I've been here in Washington is the fact that we no longer have in any real sense a free media, and that is big. That is really big. So these folks pretty much feel that they can do what they want, and far from being chastened by the Iraqi experience, the so-called mainstream media, I call them the fawning corporate media, are playing this the same way with people like Michael Gordon. I call him Aluminum Tubes Gordon, totally discredited by his performance in before Iraq. He's taking notes, stenographic notes, what the White House wants him to say, and put it on the front page of the Times. So, yeah, am I worried? I sure am worried. What's going to stop it? Well, if we get the word out to enough Americans, if we get to our Congress people and our senators and say, look, this has more to do with simply defending Israel. This is a real cauldron. This would be a regional, if not a world war. Mini nukes have been even mentioned. This is very disturbing. I mean, mini nukes. What are mini nukes? Well, the folks running our policy toward that area, they see no real difference between a mini nuke, so-called, and a high explosive weapon. And, with that kind of attitude, we are in real danger of getting involved in a situation where we're going to lose a lot of people, we're going to kill a lot of people, and we will not be able to extract ourselves, for as long as, for years.
Well, and the thing is, too, is this is horrible for Israel. Assuming they do this isn't going to be any better for them than having the U.S. invade Iraq has been.